no matter what you do for a living, you use your hands. There's even a premium on work that's done by hand in this country. Handmade of any kind means each piece is a little different, a little better, made with more care. Some tasks require a precision, sensitivity, or versatility that no machine can provide. The human hand and wrist are mechanisms of extraordinary capacity. They are the major organs for the sense of touch, allowing us to do a number of the necessities of everyday living. Our capacity to grasp things by direct opposition of thumb and fingers is a fine motor skill that no other primate has. Some anthropologists point to this as the major characteristic that allowed man to emerge superior to all other forms of life. We put these delicate instruments to work in hundreds of ways that utilize their unique capabilities. Fortunately for us, they're protected by a thick skin and tough fibrous tissue under the skin. They're not invincible, though. Jobs that don't fit the capabilities of the human body can, over time, damage it. Sometimes we take advantage of the world's finest tools. If the people in your plant do a lot of tasks by hand over and over again, their hands and wrists may suffer stresses that can damage them. In this program, we'll tell you how that occurs and what to do about it. This is the neutral position of the hand, following the line of the forearm. Bend it into any other plane, and you're stressing the hand and wrist. Force can be exerted upon the hand from outside the body or by the body's own muscles. The more force the hand has to absorb, or the more effort you have to put into a movement like this, the more the hand is stressed. Do a job with the arm extended, and even more force has to be exerted. Doing such activities frequently is another way the hand is stressed. Highly repetitive jobs can be harmful. So, 3 factors contribute to hand stress. The position of the hand relative to both the forearm and the body, the amount of force exerted on the hand or by the hand, and the number of times these stresses occur. Now, each factor by itself isn't usually dangerous, but when a job combines 2 or all 3, problems result. What kind of problems? Margaret Bleeker, a physician at Johns Hopkins University, has for some time been treating hand and wrist disorders in workers who do repetitive jobs. She told us about how workers are affected.
Symptoms of injury often don't show up in a worker until he or she has been doing a stressful job for a while. When they do come, there may be feelings of tingling or numbness in part of the hand. Gradually, the symptoms become worse and occur more frequently. People may wake up in the middle of the night with aching or numbness in the hand or arm. The hand may become clumsy, and holding on to things may become very difficult. In extreme cases, the muscle here at the base of the thumb may waste away. To understand what brings on these symptoms, you need to understand a little about the structure and workings of the wrist. A passageway runs through the inside of the wrist called the carpal tunnel. Bones form three sides of the tunnel and a ligament runs across the top. The tunnel is quite small. An adult's finger will just fit through it. 10 vital finger-flexing tendons that close the hand pass through the tunnel along with the median nerve and artery. The median nerve carries sensation from the first 3 1/2 fingers and controls the muscles at the base of the thumb. You could compare the carpal tunnel to the neck of an hourglass. Before and after passing through it, these tendons, nerve, and artery spread out into the hand on one side and into the forearm on the other. But they are, in fact, tightly packed together through the tunnel. Add to this fact that the wrist is very versatile. We use it like a universal joint in a machine to move the hand in many directions. The movement causes friction and pressure on everything that passes through the carpal tunnel. Enough pressure or stress on the median nerve can damage it and can eventually result in the carpal tunnel syndrome, characterized by the symptoms I have already mentioned. These conditions can cause lots of pain for the worker. They can also be disabling, temporarily or sometimes permanently.
The effects are first and foremost human. But there is always an economic side to an injury problem. About 23,000 cases of disorders related to chronic trauma of the hand and wrist and over 250,000 associated lost workdays are reported annually to the Department of Labor. The Industrial Commission of Ohio found that during 1979, disabling hand-wrist injuries cost an average of $36,000 each. If you have difficulty relating to broad-based numbers, consider this. In a study of workers who make metal chimneys for stoves, it was found that 33 out of 200 workers experienced lost-time hand-wrist disorders during a period of 18 months. Another study in a plant where lubricating equipment is made found 18 cases in 165 in the same time period. To check out your own operation to see whether or not you may have a problem with cumulative trauma, start here with employee absentee records. Look for patterns associated with certain jobs. Look for a high turnover in a specific job. With clues from these sources, talk to your own medical people or the people who keep employee health records. Look for diagnosed conditions, as Dr. Moody mentioned: carpal tunnel syndrome, bursitis, arthritis, tendinitis, ganglionic cysts, and so on. Less serious injuries associated with a job may also provide a clue. If at all possible, talk to the medical people who know your employees. They may have spotted a trend you should know about. Remember that many employees will seek out help from their family physicians before they'll talk to company medical staff. That's why the absentee records are such a good place to start. Some may be missing work without ever having visited the plant clinic. Other accident report records will help identify problems. Use whatever is at your disposal to identify jobs with potential problems. Now, looking at the records will tell us where we might find a problem. Scientist Dan Habes will tell us what to look for in analyzing suspect jobs.
First, talk with the employee who's doing the job. Ask if they're experiencing any pain or discomfort in their hands or wrists after work or even during work. Ask if there's a particular part of their job which they feel may be stressful to their hands or wrists. It's often helpful to write down their symptoms and any observations they may have. Next, break the job down into a list of small steps. This is a real exercise in being a good observer because most workers do manual jobs pretty fast. The idea is to break the job down into basic steps so that the movements can be analyzed in each step. This projector lets us do stop-action analysis of films. Let me use it to show you not only how to break a job down, but how to recognize hand-wrist problems. In this plant, workers use hand tools to file plastic casings. There are commonly certain places that have to be filed, but the worker is free to do the job in any sequence at the workstation, with the casing in whatever position they choose. The breakdown of this job would be pretty brief because it's unpredictable. First, the casing is brought to the workstation. Next, they file the edges of the cutouts smooth. Then they sand the edges of the casing smooth. Finally, they inspect the edges and refile as necessary. And stack the finished casing aside. Our analysis showed that most of the problems with this job occurred in steps 2 and 3, filing and sanding the casing, the real heart of the job. We find that problems often start with the way in which the tool is held. In this job, workers use a file like this with their fingers wrapped around the handle in what we call a power grip. But sometimes they use a smaller file on the smaller cutouts, and when they do, they often use a pinch grip like this. This finger opposing thumb grip produces forces inside the wrist which causes a great deal of stress to the hand-wrist system. Regardless of what grip the worker was using, this job often caused them to bend their wrists in almost every direction to do the work. Here you see ulnar deviation, which is movement of the wrist towards the little finger. This is radial deviation, which is movement of the wrist towards the thumb. Movement of the wrist in the vertical plane towards the palm results in flexion, as is seen here. Movement in the opposite direction, away from the palm, is called wrist extension. Keep track of when and how workers use these positions in the jobs you analyze. Rarely is there one factor in a job which is the major stressor. We analyzed a job in a poultry plant where several factors combined to produce stress. Workers there debone carcasses with knives. The carcasses pass on an overhead conveyor of hooks. The worker must reach out and grasp the carcass with one hand and make 4 quick cuts on the thighs with a knife held in the other hand and extract the bones. They wear a metal glove to protect themselves from cuts. Notice here that not only is the wrist deviating from neutral quite a bit, but the arm is fully extended. That means that a relatively large amount of force is needed to perform the cut, compounding the danger of injury. Judging force can be difficult. Often all you have to go on is a grimace or a tense forearm in the worker. Scientists at the University of Michigan's Center for Ergonomics have recently developed a system for quantitatively measuring muscle exertion. Electrodes on the skin measure electrical impulses generated by the muscles when they contract. The amount of signal registered is directly proportional to the amount of force exerted. This technique, called electromyography, or EMG, was used to help pinpoint problems in the poultry factory. The other component of the job that is stressful is the frequency of the operation. Typically, the worker makes over 15,000 cuts per day. Combined with the effort required and the wrist positions, it adds up to a lot of insult to the body. Use equipment and plant layout drawings, stopwatches, photographs, and anything else you can think of to quantify the situation where you work. There are experts in the field of ergonomics, like the ones at the University of Michigan, who specialize in maximizing the fit of jobs to workers. They can help you with finding the problem and also with finding solutions.
Once a job is analyzed, the objective is to change either the workplace or the tools to reduce the number and types of movements, awkward positions, and muscle exertion required of the worker. Machines like these are doing more and more repetitive jobs, and in the years to come may virtually eliminate cumulative trauma disorders of the wrist from the workplace. I don't need to review the benefits of automation for you, though. There are some simple ways, however, to deal with jobs that cause hand or wrist problems. The experts who analyze the jobs in the poultry plant focus their efforts on a change in the design of the knife the employee uses. Tool design is an important variable because tools physically link the worker with the job. Generally, the handle of a tool should help distribute the work forces over as much of the palm as possible, especially the muscles at the base of the thumb and the side ridge of the hand. The tool should allow the wrist to remain in a neutral position while working. That's the primary problem with the knife. That final cut you saw before required a severe ulnar deviation. Repositioning the handle at a 90-degree angle to the blade puts the wrist back into a neutral position. Use of the knife resulted in a much smaller force demand on the worker's muscles. Notice the band holding the knife handle to the worker's hand. It allows her to release her grip on the knife almost entirely between cycles. The handle on this knife is a little bigger than the old knife to help cut down on the grip force. Optimum handle size depends on the worker, but it should be about 1 1/2 inches in diameter or about 4 1/2 inches around. Tool designers are just beginning to find ways to make their products fit their users better. Buy your tools carefully and look for models like these that stress the hands as little as possible. Tool redesign doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. This clamp is used during the assembly of snow skis. Before it was changed, the spread of the handle caused stress on the finger flexor muscles of the forearm. It was changed by simply bending the handles inward, which increased the mechanical advantage of the hand and arm and decreased the resistance of the spring. The cushions reduced the stress on the soft tissues of the palm. Reducing the reach required of a worker is often easily accomplished. Snow skis are checked here, imperfections are removed, and the edges are trimmed with a small knife. The company added this ingenious track that moves the skis 2 at a time back and forth in front of the worker, effectively reducing the distance she has to reach to do the job. Changing the way a job is done can reduce harmful postures. Before this box assembly table was designed and installed, workers had to use the stressful pinch grip on the sides of the box while the glue set up. The grip required was especially stressful because of the box shape. The table incorporates a trough that helps form the box and a pneumatic plate that holds it in place while the glue sets up. The pinch grip has been eliminated from the job as a result of these changes. Involve the workers in protecting themselves by teaching them how to do their job without using harmful movements. They also need to know what positions are harmful and why. Knowledge about cumulative trauma disorder symptoms will help them recognize problems earlier, perhaps before too much damage is done. Once you change the workplace, you'd better check to make sure it was for the better. First, monitor the medical progress of the workers. Symptoms may not disappear, but new workers shouldn't develop symptoms as fast after the job is changed. Second, another job analysis should be done to make sure you're getting the desired results and there are no new stresses on the worker's hands and wrists. As you investigate your operations for cumulative trauma problems, remember the ways the hand and wrist are stressed: by force, frequency, and position. Remember that clues as to where these problems might be can come from the employees, their records, and a thorough analysis of suspect jobs, and that the solutions are to change the workplace or the tools. Our hands are marvelous possessions. There are so many things we can do with them. So many ways that they can bring us pleasure. Why not protect them by making sure that the jobs we give them really fit them?